All right, so now we are going to be doing one section, 7.3. I wanted to leave it alone just because it's a little bit weird. If you haven't seen it before, it will be a little bit interesting to say the least. I did not go through the entire unit of or lessons of matrices, so there are a lot of pieces missing, and if that were the case, we would not finish. So I'm going to give you just the more important pieces that you're going to use for this section only. I will also be showing you how to do it on a calculator when we have class on Tuesday. However, just focus on what I'm telling you, okay? So let's see if that works. All right, what are matrices? Matrices are an arrangement of rows and columns. Rows go horizontal, columns are like the ones that are in a row. When you are having these matrix operations, okay, you want to know how to name your, well, the naming is by a capital letter. The dimensions are going to be given by the amount of rows and the amount of columns. Why is this important? Because you need to know what dimension it is. It's sometimes different like dimensions that don't match can't multiply. Dimensions that are not squared, which means they have the same number, you can't find the identity for. And so there's a lot of specifics that I'm not going to go over, but you need to know how to name a matrix and what the dimensions are, because you're going to have to put those in the calculator to help you find the answer as you are working through these problems, okay? So remember, there is a soda, it's called RC Cola. So just remember it that way, RC, rows by columns. If I have something like this, don't look at that, okay? This is a row of 2 and 2 columns. Okay, this is 3 rows, 3 columns. Okay, just a lesson. All right, when you are dealing with matrices that you're going to be solving, this is called the identity matrix. Okay, so your job is to make your matrix, if it's a 2 by 2, it'll be this way, which means you're solving for X and Y, 2 variables only. If you are solving a 3 by 3, it'll look like this. So it basically has ones in the diagonal and zeros everywhere else. We've got what is called an upper triangle and then a lower triangle, because if you connect these, they're zeros. But if you were to see them as dots, they would make a little triangle at the bottom. And you'd be solving for 3 variables. All right, these are the steps. You can use these again on the exam. Let me go over the steps. Your job is to get every single number in that specific slot as zeros and ones, okay? So what you're going to do, the way to, it's kind of like doing a Rubik's Cube, right? You have the cube, which you have somewhere over here. And what you want to do is you want to be able, let's say, to get the blue color on the top corner or the front face, right? Once you get that blue color and you're going to then try to get another blue right next to it, you don't want to undo what you already did. And that's basically where these steps come from. These steps are done in such a way that if you follow the steps, you won't undo what you already did. So this is where you start. You always start working through each column. Okay, you find the 1 in that column. It's even if, let's say you had a 4 by 4, like 4 rows and 4 columns, or 10 rows and 10 columns, you will only have a 1 in, like in the identity matrix, you will only have a 1. Like look at this one, there's only a 1 and a whole bunch of zeros. But in every single row, sorry, in every single column, you will only have a 1. So that means that you will try to make that 1 in that position first. Once you have a 1 in that specific position, which would be the top left corner, then you can find its 0 below. Then you move on to the next column, you find that 1, And that row that has the 1 will help you find that 0 in that column. Okay. Let's try it again. In this 3 by 3, you would start with this 1. Then you would use this row to help you find this 0 in the first column. And then this 0, you're going to use the same row to help you find that 0 in that column. Then you move on to the second column. You start with getting this as a 1. Then you use this row that has the 1, help you get this 0 over here. And then you're going to use this same row to help you get this 0 in that column. Once you're done, you move on to the last column. You start by getting a 1 in here. Then you use this row to help you get this 0 here. And then you use this row again to help you find this 0 in the last column, and then you're done. Okay, so that means once you do all of that procedure, you will end up magically with 3 numbers on the right. Those 3 numbers will be your answers. Okay, how do we get 1s and 0s? Getting the 1s is the easiest thing. I already put here, get the 1 in that column, then with that row, use it to get the 0s in that column. That's everything that I just explained. The next thing is to move 1 column at a time. So once you're done with 1 column, then you move on to the next, and you move on to the next, okay? How do you get the 1s? The 1s are the easiest. The 1s you just multiply or divide. So if I have a 5 in here, and I want to get a 1, I divide the whole row by 5. Okay, you want to think that every row, every column was an equation. It just got the variables removed. That's basically what a matrix is. There were a whole bunch of equations with a whole bunch of letters that got removed. And that's why you only see the numbers. Okay. The zeros are a bit more difficult to get. So to get the zeros, you're then going to add the opposites. You're going to try, zeros means nothing, it means they canceled. So you're trying to think of the elimination process. How do I get 2 variables to cancel? They have to be opposites of each other. And that's the whole point. I will show you how to do that. You want to relate it back to equations. Okay. All right, so let's have this sink in a bit. Okay, I'm going to rewrite this in matrix form. I'm not going to do anything yet. You will be asked to do this. Matrix form is putting this into this one, not the 1s and the 0s, just that format. So if I have 3x plus y equals 10, half x minus 4y equals -6. Okay, the way you write this into matrix form, super easy. It should be a piece of cake. I started off with just something really simple. Like I said, I didn't include everything. So matrix form means in your head, oops, you're going to remove the x's and y's. So you're just going to pull the coefficients. I get 3, half, 1, -4. And you put that in a big bracket. The equal signs are going to be this vertical line. The 10 coefficients are going to go on the right. That's matrix form. So basically, you're going to attempt to get this into an identity. 3, 1, 0, 1, 0. Once you change these to what I just told you, these are going to change with them, and that will be your answer. This part will be your answer. Okay, let's try the last one. What if we had x plus 0y equals 3? Or what if you just had like 5y equals 10? I put in the 0 for you, but if you don't have it, you know it's a 0. So for example, here I have to align them, right? X's, Y's, numbers. So I don't have an X over here, so I'd have to, if I don't have that variable, it would just be 0 of that variable. So I'd have 1, 0, 0, 5, 3, 10. That's how you would write that in matrix form. That's all you need to do for those 2 examples. Now we're going to solve using matrices, okay? And then I'll show you in the calculator on Tuesday. So I'm gonna do 2 of these just so that you can get the practice. And then there are a 3 by 3 and a 3 by 3. So you can do these algebraically like I did 7.2. You can do them exactly the same. However, we're gonna use matrix form. So I'm gonna do one. You can practice the other, okay? So let's get started. These are brutal. So let's just practice basically. Okay. X plus 2y equals 2. 3x minus 4y equals 1. Okay, I'm going to make sure I copy this correctly. X plus 2y equals 2. Okay, all right, so first things first. Convert this to matrix form. 1, 3, 2, negative 4. I'm going to do this. I'm going to put these in a different color. Okay, so my goal is to get this left, the one in red. 1, 0, 0, 1. That's the goal. Okay. This red part has to match that. All right, so just keep that in your mind. Keep that in mind. Okay. Let's get this started. Let me just move something here. Okay. So first things first, you have to start with this guy. This position has to have a 1 here. So if I grab this and I put it on top, that has a 1. So that one is done. We're done. That one is done. I cross up these things. I'm basically going to be working counterclockwise. Start with this 1, then this 0, then this 1, then it's 0. So this is already 1. All right. How do I get this to be a 0? So just think, if I were to put the variables back in there, how can I get 3 to be a 0? I'd have to find its opposite, right? So what you would do is you would multiply this 1 by a negative 3. And that would create a negative 3 that when you add, you would get a 0. But remember, every time you multiply, again, if you're thinking about equations, I can't just multiply this term by negative 3. You have to multiply the whole equation. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a negative 3 here with the dot multiplication. And I'm just going to put some arrows. And the answers to these, I'm going to put them below. So 3 times, negative 3 times 1 is negative 3. Negative 3 times 2 is negative 6. Negative 3 times 2 is a negative 6. So you use the first equation, but you don't change that in the next step. Okay? This is going to stay the same. 1, 2, 2 stay the same. What you want to change is this one to a 0. So I'm going to grab my highlighter and I'm going to highlight the one that I want to change. And so once I've multiplied this negative 3 with everything, I put the answers down here because now I'm going to add these. And that will be my new row. And this is so awkward. You just have to do enough. So when you add these, you get a 0. When you add these, you get a negative 10. When you add these, you get a negative 5. Okay. And now I have a 0 in this place, so this could be crossed off. Okay. The next one is to get this 1. And like I said, 1s are the easiest ones to get. So I need to get this to be a 1. You would just divide by that number. That's easy. You just divide by whatever number that is. Divide or multiply by the reciprocal. It doesn't matter. Okay. So I'm going to multiply, or I'm going to divide. Let's divide everything through by a negative 10. So the first row does not change. I'm going to keep it the same. It's the second row that needs to change. And that second row is divided by negative 10. So this still maintains my 0. See that? Not going to mess with my 0. Here, I'm gonna now get a 1. And on this side, I'm gonna get a half. That's a negative. Okay, so that's a positive half. Okay. All right, I got the 1 there. Done. Last step, and you're going to be doing the same step. So to get zeros, you do one thing. To get ones, you do another. So now I'm going to have to get this position to be a 0. How do I do that? I use the previous row that had a 1. And I'm going to multiply it by its inverse, not inverse, opposite. So the opposite of 2 would be a -2. So I'm going to multiply everything by -2. I'll do it over here too. I'm going to multiply everything through by a -2. I'm going to put those answers right above because I'm going to add these, okay? This row stays the same. The one I'm going to change is the top row. The top row is going to change now. The bottom, I don't want it to change. So I'm going to 0, 1. I always write down, it's just a habit of mine. I write down always the one that's not going to change. Okay, so then I multiply. This times this is a 0. This -2 times 1 is a -2. And -2 times a half is a -1. So when I add these, I get still my 1 back. I don't change that. That gives me now a 0. And that gives me a 1. This means that when I've got the matrix on this side to match the goal matrix, this is my answer for X and this is my answer for Y. Therefore, my answer is 1 and 1 comma half. And again, I'll show you how to do that on the calculator when we meet in class. Left this page blank on myself. Yeah, like I said, it's a bit weird. One. 2 equals 2. I'm just checking if this is correct. Yeah. So what I did is I quickly did this. Okay. And I basically solved it by elimination. You can see the original problem. I know I made a mess. I did it pretty quickly. But you can solve these by elimination also. Okay. But if we ask you to do it with the matrix, you have to do it with the matrix to get full points. All right. Let's try the next one. We'll try another 2 by 2 and then one 3 by 3. All right, 5x plus 2y equals 1. 2x minus 1 equals 4. Okay, let's extract it and make it look like a matrix. And before we begin, let's write our goal. The goal is the same exact thing. That will be on the left side. So let's write this out. 5, 2, 2, -1. Make the line. 1, 4. Okay. All right. You can also swap rows. I forgot to tell you that. You can swap rows because you can have these two equations written like that. You can just put this one on top and that one at the bottom. Doesn't matter, right? And the reason for that is sometimes like this one will have a 5 and that'll be a 1. So the easiest way to do this is just to swap. Okay, but it's not the case for this one. Let me see if it's the case of the next one. Yeah, I'll show you how to do it on the next one. Okay, so even if we swap these entire rows, I won't get a 1 in here, and that's my first thing. I need to first get a 1 in this position. So I could divide everything through by 5. Now notice that you want to think ahead. You're like, okay, I want to divide everything by 5. That'll give me 1. That's a horrible fraction, horrible fraction. But if I swap these two rows and then I divide this by 2, my fractions won't be so ugly, right? So we can still swap. I'm still going to swap. 2, -1. 4, 5, 2, 1. Now I'm going to divide by 2, just the top row. So I'm going to highlight the one that I'm changing right now. That's it. The bottom one stays the same. So I'm going to divide this by 2. That's a 1. Divide this by 2. That's a negative half. Divide that by 2. Okay, not too bad. My fractions weren't too bad. Halves I can handle. 5/4, 1/3. Those are a bit more brutal, right? But I can handle halves. Halves are still good. All right. So now we've got this down. Now we want to get this to be a 0. So what do I need? I need this to be its opposite. So I need to multiply this row by a negative 5. And I'm going to write my results on top or at the bottom, whatever. I usually write them right next to it if I can. That way when I add, I see that it's a 0. So I'm going to keep this one the same, but it's changing this guy. Okay, so I'm going to multiply this by negative 5. I'll write the results down here. That's a positive 5/2. And then I multiply this. That's a negative 10. So now I'm going to add these two in order to change that. That's a 1, negative half, 2. So this one's going to now be 0. That's what I wanted. I'm going to take 2 and add 3/2. Now 3/2 is 3.5. You can use this in decimals, but I would rather do is use fractions. And I'll tell you what, fractions are actually easier when you're working with division and multiplication of these guys. So this is 2/1, which is the same thing as I multiply by 2, 4/2. I'm going to add 5/2. So that's 9/2. When I add these two, that's what I get. Then I get negative 9. Okay. All right. This 0 is done. I'm going to continue and get this to be a 1. So I told you to get that to be a 1, you're going to do the division of that number, which would be very brutal. Or you can always do the reciprocal, right? Which is much easier. So I'm going to multiply this by the reciprocal of this. 2 9. 2 9. And so I'm going to change this for sure. That's the row you're changing. You're keeping the first one. 1, negative half, or 2. So that's going to be still 0. No matter what you multiply 0 by, it's going to be 0. When you multiply that times that, that's a 1 now, because you purposely made it that. And this is a 9/1. So these two can cancel, and that gives me a negative 2. So some of the intermediate steps will be fractions, but they'll turn out to be nice numbers, at least the ones I gave you. Okay. That one is done. All right. Now, to get this to be a 0, I'm going to multiply this number by the opposite of that. So that'll be a half. And I'm going to put the results above here and then just add them. So this is the row I am changing. I'm keeping the last one. If there are 4 numbers, there's usually 4 steps. So I'm not changing that one. At the end, that's going to stay the same. In the multiplication, I just write the answers up here. So 1/2 times 0 is still 0. 1/2 times 1 is a 1/2. And then 2 times a half is a negative 1. So then when I add these, I still maintain my 1. That becomes 0. And that becomes a 1. So my answer is 1, negative 2. Okay, I literally finished right at the edge of the paper. And that was the answer. Okay. All right, we've got one more to go. That's going to be the 3 by 3, which will be a bit brutal. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 numbers. That means 9 steps minimum. Okay. This one had 4 numbers that had 4 steps minimum. It took us a little bit longer. We had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 steps. That's because we swapped these two from the beginning. They just added an extra step. All right, you will be using the entire page, so make sure you get a new page, and also make sure that you're super, super, super careful with everything that you write. I use a highlighter to show which row is going to change. You can use it for showing the rows that are not going to change. I mean, I've seen different things from students, so it's up to you. I'm going to start from the top, literally from the top. So I have some space. So it's 2x plus 4y plus 4z equals 4x plus 3y plus z equals 4 negative x plus 3y plus 2z equals negative 1. I'm going to write the matrix without the variables. 2, 1, negative 1. 4, 3, 3. Oh, I should write it down. Well, let me do it again. 2, 1, negative 1. 4, 3, 3. 4, 1, 2, or 4, 4, negative 1. Yeah, this is better when you have the actual rows. Over here, instead of writing this out, I'm going to write the goal matrix. Okay, and again, you can write this on your note cards. The goal matrix is having, this is a 3 by 3, so on this side, I want ones as the diagonal, everything else is zeros. So I'm going to have 1, 0, 0. Then the 1 in the middle, 0 on top, 0 on bottom. Then the 1 at the bottom, 0, 0. You don't have to memorize these. You can just put that on your note card. All right, that'll be the last one. Let's see how this goes. Do I have the answer? I do. It is right here. 2, 1, negative 1. So all my answers have been whole numbers, integers. Hopefully that helps. I hope. All right, let's get this started. Oh dear. All right, first goal, I need to start getting this 1, and then with this row, I'll get that 0, and I'll get that 0. Okay, that's the order. So I want a 1 in that position. I could divide everything through by 2 if I wanted. Actually, I should do that just so I can reduce all my numbers. Otherwise, I'm going to have to deal with this row later on. So I'm going to divide everything through by 2. You could have also swapped these two, but I noticed that they are all divisible by 2. Otherwise, I would have swapped. So that means I'm going to get 1, 2, 2, bar 2. 1, 3, 1, 4. Negative 1, 3, 2, negative 1. And done. Okay. All right, now with the 3 by 3s, I gave a lot of 1s so that you don't have to do a lot of work. All right, next step is to get this to be a 0. Okay. In order for this to be a 0, I need a 0 here. This has to be opposite of that. You do not change this row. This is the row you don't change. You just use it. So I'm going to box it so that you don't use it. Okay. So I'm going to rewrite it. What I normally do is the row that's not going to change, I just write it down immediately. So I know I don't mess it up. Okay. The middle row is what's going to change. So I'm going to grab my highlighter and go ahead and highlight it. Okay. That's the only one that's going to change right now. I don't want to do 2 steps at the same time. So I'm keeping those 2. I'm only changing the middle one. That's why I left the space in the middle. Okay. So now what I need to do is in order for this to be a 0, they need to be opposite. So I need to multiply this by a -1. So let's multiply. Now, I can't put the answers like right below because it doesn't fit. So I'm going to put them above. So -1 times 1, -1, -1 times 2, -2, -1 times 2, -2, -1 times, it's a -2. Okay, now those numbers, these are going to add with this entire row. Okay, so that will create, when you add the yellow with the numbers on top, that will give me a 0. So I'm going to put it in red so that you see which row it is. Then these two give me a 1. And then these two, that's -2 plus 1 is a -1. And then -2 plus 4 is a 2. Okay. All right. All right, this 0 is done. Yeah, it takes a while. All right. Now to get this 0, I'm going to take the same row and I'm going to see what makes this the opposite. So I'm going to box the row that's not going to change. Okay. I need these two to be opposites. They already are. Okay. So because they already are, I'm going to keep the same row on the top. I'm going to keep the same row in the middle. I should make my choose like that because then I look like Z's. I never make my choose like that. So now what I'm going to do is add row 1 and 3 because they're already opposites of each other. So if I add this to that, I already get 0. I get 5. I get 4. And I get a 1. I added this row, the one that's boxed with the third one. This is the row that changed. Okay. So I've got that one. All right. We're going to move on to the next column over. I'm going to get that number in the middle to be a 1. So if I look at my matrix, what I have here, guess what? That's already a 1. So that is done. I can skip that step. We're done. Okay. Now I want either 0. You can pick whichever one. If I want this top number to be a 0, this number to be a 0, I'm going to use this middle row. Okay. To get that to be a 0. In order for that to be a 0, I need this one to be its opposite. So that would be a -2. So I'd multiply this row, this middle row, by a -2. Get rid of that arrow, might be a bit confusing. So I'm going to multiply this by -2. And I'm going to put the answers right above. So -2 times 0 is 0. -2 times 1, -2. -2 times 1, -2. And this is -4. Okay, so in the next step, I'm going to keep the bottom two. 0, 1, 1, 2, 0, 5, 4, 1. And this is the one that's going to change. So now I go ahead and I add these. So that's still a 1. It does not change my 1. That's now a 0. When I add, that's a 0. And that's a -2. Notice that I'm getting more zeros, and that allows me to finish this more quickly. Okay. So I've got that one. All right. I'm going to use the middle row again. Okay. I'm going to use the middle row again in order for me to get this to be a 0. Okay. So in order for me to do that, I need these to be opposites of each other. So I'm going to multiply by 5, the whole row. And whatever I get, I'll put it below. So on my next step, I'm going to keep this row 1, 0, 0, -2. I'm going to keep the middle, and I'm changing the last one, which is why I've left it in blank. So I'm going to write that in red. This one was the one we were changing. From here to here, it's this one that we're changing. Okay. I'm going to multiply. These two give me a 0. These two give me a -5. That's a -5. -5 times 2 is a -10. And then I'm going to add. That's a 0, 0, -1, -9. All right, I need a 1 in this position. So I almost have it. So what I'm going to do is just divide by negative. I'm going to take my highlighter and highlight that because that's the only thing I'm changing. And that means divide by a -1. Okay, so that's a 1, 0, 0, -2, 0, 1, 1, 2, and that's the only one that's changing. So if I divide everything through by a -1, I just change that to a 1 and that to a 9. That is it. Okay. All right, so this is done. Notice that this 0 is already here. So that's done. I've got one more step. I need to get this one to be a 0. So what I need is I need the previous row to be the opposite of it. Okay. And then I can add. Am I close to the answer? Might not even be correct. Okay. So I'm going to keep this. Okay. And then I'm going to, this is the one that I want to change. I'm going to keep the top one, 1, 0, 0, 2. Keep the bottom one, 0, 0, 1, 9. I think I might have made a mistake somewhere. See, these are hard to find the mistakes. Let's check. So anyway, multiply this by -1. Wherever you want to put the answers, you're going to add it to the middle row. So I'll put them here at the bottom. 0, 0, -1, -9. And then I'm going to add this entire row to this bottom. So it's 0, 1, 0, 7. So the answer would be XYZ, but that's not what I have up here. So maybe I made a mistake. But anyway, that's how you would do it. Let me see if I wrote the original one correct. No. Yeah, there's a mistake somewhere in here. We can go over it in class. I will find my mistake and let you know. So these are difficult to find the mistakes. You have to go backtracking all your steps. Something happened. This one is almost correct. It's a negative, but on the answers to 2, and then these two are different. Okay. So I'll find it and then I'll let you know in class where my mistake was. But this is how you would solve a 3 by 3. Get practice with doing some of these. Do the last one that is on here. Just to practice it. The answer is there. Watch you mess it up like myself. So give it a try. I hope you don't mess it up like I do. So just practice. I will be just helping you out as much, but there is nothing like practicing this. Okay, there's no shortcut at all. 3 by 3s are a bit brutal. They are just the same steps over and over and over again. Okay, but hopefully you can have enough practice on the test. Make sure you do know how to do this by a matrix. You can check on your calculator the answer, but you still have to show the work. Okay, so if you have any questions, please bring them to me on Tuesday. let's check this out. I'm not going to stop sharing. I'm going to stop the recording. So thank you so much. Have a great night.